Welcome, folks. Welcome. This is Mark from 2 Cents Rugby, bringing you the captain's call from our friends at eToro and Planet Rugby. I am joined by two of Europe's greatest captains from my generation anyway. Chris Robshaw from England. How are you, mate?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. Yourself?
I'm very well, apart from the rain, which is persistent here in New Zealand. Sergio, how about yourself, mate? I understand your boy went to his first day at school today.
Yeah, very good. So good day, special day this morning. Really sunny here in the south of France, and happy to have with you.
I'm very jealous, mate, of the sunshine. And James, mate, the features correspondent at Planet Rugby, contributor to The Sun and The Times. Loads of world rugby watching experience. How are you doing, sir?
I'm looking forward to Thursday when I'll be on the plane to France. Very excited for the first game.
Jeez, you guys are making me unbelievably envious as I'm sitting here in the rain, about as far from France as you could be. But we are excited. Obviously, World Cup is just around the corner, and I mean, it's in France. It's in France for the first time since 2007. Sergio, you were playing back in 2007. Yeah. What can we expect from France? Because right now, even from here in New Zealand, it feels like the fever for rugby right now is just building in France.
Yeah, definitely. I have the chance to play the World Cup 2007, which was a great tournament. Here in France, the culture, they love rugby and they have a lot of expectation. This French team looks stronger than ever, and they're really excited. In the south of France, even in Paris, wherever, there are a lot of fans around, and obviously it's going to be fantastic to see all the teams playing the World Cup, and of course in France, a lot of expectation on this French team who looks like a favorite.
Sure. Chris, you've played in France, obviously. Sometimes you've had success. Sometimes it's been a bit of a hard road. But I mean, overall, this World Cup, just on the face of it, it looks like one where you look at the pools and it's not one where there's like kind of two clear favorites in each of the pools that are going to go through. Is this perhaps like a World Cup for the underdogs? Are we going to see any giant slayings?
Yeah, I think we will. Like you said, everyone kind of had their predictions before about 2 weeks ago, and then South Africa do that to New Zealand, and obviously Fiji have beaten England at home, and all of a sudden everything's kind of gone out the window. But I think that's what makes it so exciting, and previous form doesn't always mean everything when you go into a World Cup. But from an English point of view, you can feel it building now. And of course, we're so close to France. The French are going so well at the moment, and they have some world superstars in Dupont and a number of others. But of course, they've lost some big players. And I know Sergio will probably know some of them a little bit better than I do, but they could be a big loss.
Now, folks, I'm just going to jump in here for a second to say that this is the first of 3 episodes we're going to have with the boys on the Rugby World Cup. The second episode will be just prior to the knockout stages, and the third just prior to the final itself. Also, we're doing this in conjunction with Planet Rugby, so they're going to have all the written pieces over on their website, so check that out, and their social media platforms kind of as normal. The podcast itself is brought to you guys by eToro. They are the official investing and trading partner of Premiership Rugby. eToro recognizes that great trading requires great tools. That's why they help you stay ahead of the curve by combining the power of trading view charts and a full economic calendar to help you stay prepared for market events, earnings reports, and more. Tackle investing the smart way and join millions of UK investors on eToro today. eToro is a multi-asset platform. The value of your investments may go up or down. Your capital is at risk. Back to the show. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that actually, because I mean, since they beat my All Blacks pretty handily not too long ago, New Zealand rugby fans have been watching this French team with an eagle eye. But then we see Intermac go down right before the start of the tournament. Now they've lost Willemse. Dante's not available for the first game. Cyril Bayer's not available. I mean, Sergio, how deep do you think the depth goes in France? Like, how many more injuries can they suffer before that A level starts to look a bit fragile?
There are a lot of depth on this French team. Of course, a few injuries in the last weeks, and a lot of problems for the team before the World Cup. But when you see the team, the talent, the players, the depth they have, of course, Paul Willems is a big blow, but they have people, they are able to take his place. And as I said before, I'm I'm pretty sure that France have the strongest team than ever in the last 20, 15 years. And as Chris say, Dupont is a guy who can really make the difference every time and have a real physical pack. So it's going to be interesting to see the first game against New Zealand. I think going to set the tone for the rest of the tournament.
Question from me to Chris and Sergio. Dante for me is the biggest loss of those guys, because I'm not sure France have a like-for-like replacement for Dante, that big 12 that can crash it up from from the 10-12 channel of first phase or second phase. Who do you think is going to replace him? How are they going to cope without Dante?
Probably your old mate Sergio Fico. Do you reckon he'll step into there? He's done it numerous times. I've been on. I played away in France, and he's broken my heart a couple of times with last tries and stuff like that. And he's still going strong, and I think he'll fit in there quite nicely.
He's a big guy.
But I know this kid since he was in the academy and Stade Francais, Jonathan T. Great guy and really powerful. And I agree with you, James. He's a big blow for France. Definitely in his profile as number 12. He's really physical, really good on the jackal, working and put every time, the backs in foot front. So I don't know. Of course, it's going to be different. Maybe we're going to change a little bit the strategy because, Dante is not, you don't have another Dante maybe with the same quality in the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how Galtier and the staff, they're going to replace him.
And just to close that one off, on the downside of losing Dante, Anthony Gelanche is back, and whilst he's a back row forward, he does offer the same level of carrying threat as Dante. Is there a chance we might see him standing in the 12 channel, coming in on the crash ball and so on? Do you think?
Yeah, maybe they have different. Of course, it's gonna be interesting to see how Gelanche is back. His fitness is back. I had in the past ACL. Is the injuries is every time part of the game, and he need to gain time. Of course, they're doing an incredible recovery, and he looks good. But test match and game of rugby is different than fitness and difference with everything you do, and especially in the World Cup. So I think Fabien Galtier talk about him. See, he wants to introduce him maybe the game against Italy, or maybe before. So we want to see. It's going to be interesting. I think without Dante, they're going to probably change a little bit the strategy, maybe trying to find another solution. But France have a lot of ball carrier as well with the forward. So we want to see what happens.
I think a lot with French going into a home World Cup, and with England, of course, we had it in 2015. It's that pressure and the expectation, and obviously they're ranked number 1 and number 2 in the world, where we weren't in that position. And it's very different going into that home game, where of course they have played well. They know New Zealand haven't played as well in their last game, but before that we're going pretty strongly. And normally a lot of home nations will probably play a tier 2 side, build the confidence, know they're going to get the win and all that. Whereas this, it's a blockbuster from the off. They have to hit the ground running, because all of a sudden, if they lose that first game against, and it is the All Blacks, it's a very good side, don't get me wrong. But then all of a sudden, doubts may creep in. Do we see different things? Whereas if they win that game and win that well, the whole country, I think, will explode with excitement and passion and belief in the team, which they already have.
What do you think of this All Blacks side, Chris? I mean, they have had a bit of a roller coaster under Ian Foster, and then they just seem to be getting things right in 2023, and then they hit this brick South African wall 2 weeks out from a World Cup.
Exactly that. Obviously, Ireland went there. They had a tough time over here when they came here last to Europe, and everyone was starting to write them off. Then they go into the Rugby Championship. They blitz that. They're phenomenal again. All of a sudden, people are putting them in the reckoning. And actually, before the South Africa game 2 weeks ago, I thought this first game, the France-New Zealand, would also be the final game. Would also be the final. Who was going to win it? I was unsure. But then, like you said, they come up against South Africa, and South Africa just destroyed them. I know there was a red card, and they played a lot with a man down. But I still think if Barrett had been on the field, I think they would have won comfortably. It was just the intensity in which they couldn't live with. But they looked like before that game they had their mojo back. They were playing free-flowing rugby, but they had that physicality. They were mixing up cross-field kicks because they came to Twickenham. It was a game we drew. Was that last autumn?
Yeah, 25-25.
But I think what really encouraged me and what they're doing again is they would, if it's on, they play. Even if that's in their own third, where most international sides in their own third generally play territory. They don't want to have the ball in their own third of the pitch because it creates problems or penalties and turnovers and all that stuff. But if it's on for them, they'd create crossfield kicks and stuff like that. And it wouldn't always work, but 7 out of 10 times it does work for them, and they back those ratios.
It was very interesting. I was at the South Africa game, and I always look at New Zealand sides, Kiwi sides, they're very much at their best when they're working on turnover ball. And what South Africa did better than any other side I've seen was keep the ball, right? They were incredible over retaining possession, going over the top of the ball, clearing out, very accurate work at ruck time, very legal work at ruck time. And New Zealand really didn't get their hand on those turnover opportunities that they're so famous for.
Yeah, if anything, New Zealand were the ones conceding the turnovers in that game. But there is one other team that we probably need to touch on in that pool, and Sergio, that's Italy. They've got a pretty rotten draw, man. You've got the hosts in France and one of the most successful teams in history in the All Blacks that they've never managed to beat before. So what are their chances? It's a young side. What's going to be the minimum target for the Italian side in this World Cup?
I think Italy play good rugby in the last year. They probably don't achieve as many victories as maybe they deserve or they wanted. Tough pool. Play France, New Zealand, and they start the campaign playing Namibia and Uruguay, which are two teams that we don't must to underestimate. We must play and win it. So Italy must achieve these 2 wins, and then it's depends how Chris said. The game against France and New Zealand is going to be interesting because for Italy as well, from the mental point of view, Italy played France last game of the pool. If France don't win against New Zealand first game, probably they're gonna play against Italy with a little bit of pressure, So for the Italian point of view, it's no pressure. The only pressure is just have the 2 wins against Namibia and Uruguay, respect a lot these 2 teams, and then go to New Zealand and France game with all the energy, no pressure. So it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be interesting to see what's happening in the opening game against France and New Zealand.
So does that mean Italian fans suddenly support the All Blacks to beat the French to add pressure to the French?
Maybe I don't know. So I think Italy, we never beat New Zealand, and we beat a couple of times France, but as I say, from the Italy point of view, it's no point. We can talk about beating New Zealand, beating France. Just must be humble. Playing Namibia, Uruguay, we don't talk about the team, but Uruguay beat Fiji in the last World Cup, and for them the World Cup is going to be beat Italy. So every single game of the World Cup is not easy. So Italy must go humble, win the 2 games, and then just challenge New Zealand and France, and we'll see what happens.
Now, speaking of not easy, Pool B looks even worse. I mean, you've got number 1 Ireland, you've got number 2 South Africa, and then you've got Scotland, number 5, who, if they were on the other side of the draw, would probably be the favourites to get out of their pool. I mean, Chris, how does this pool look? I mean, are South Africa kind of peaking at the right time? Are we going to see this 7-1 split that everyone's just losing their minds over?
I like most. I thought that was brilliant. There's nothing worse than as a forward when you're exhausted after 50, 60 minutes, and you see huge men come off the bench, and you think you've dealt with them, and then even bigger.
I agree with that.
And it just 7 of them. Like the rumors are, they might even put 8 in just to wind people up, but you're just exhausted, and you see that, and you've got to lift it, and it just mentally takes it out of you. And that is very much, and Sergio's played against South Africa as well. That's very much playing against to South African strengths. Their forward-oriented game, their set piece, they're structured, they're territorial, they're physical, and they're aggressive. And they do play a little bit out the back, but only once they go forward first. And to have that momentum and the 7-1 split, it's bold. And obviously, Razzie, he's and the rest of the coaching group, they do throw a couple of fireworks and a couple of grenades in every now and then, don't they? And that's definitely got people talking.
Yeah, I love it. I love it as well.
On the subject of grenades, just want to throw to both of you. I've actually looked at South Africa and I thought, well, they're the one side that have really evolved in terms of a playing style in the 4 years. And I looked at Libbok, Kane and Moody, and what these guys are doing in the South African game. We're finally seeing a backline from the Springboks that can really use the quality of ball that their forwards produce.
Yeah, definitely. As Chris say, I think their philosophy is just, win an advantage line, have strong set piece, and then when you have your forwards, you give the ball with the momentum going forward. It's easy for the backs to play. Of course, they have speed, they have power, they have a lot of speed in the back line. And, it's going to be for every single team of this Pool B against South Africa, it's going to be the physical battle. If they're going to smash you every game if you don't, resist against them, if you don't challenge them in the scrum, in the mauls, around the racks, when the forward's going around the corner, if you don't put your body on the line, well, it's going to be difficult for every single team on this pool.
Now, Chris, I want to ask you a little bit about Ireland, because Irish fans, from some of the feedback I've been getting, they're a little bit grumpy that not more pundits are tipping Ireland to go all the way. They're the number one side in the world. They've won a Grand Slam. They've won a tour down here in New Zealand. But when you look at some of the newspapers and whatnot for which pundits are tipping teams to win the World Cup, there's not many. I think Opta, their stats machine, said Ireland, but there's not many who are like putting the neck out on the line and saying Ireland are going to win this. So are they flying under the radar somehow?
They are a little bit, and when you're in a situation where the media and everyone else is writing you off, sometimes as a group that brings you closer together, because you want to put two fingers up at them and say that we'll go and show them. But in all honesty, I'm probably one of them. I think with them and the teams coming out of that group, they have to play so many big games. So they have to get out of their group first, where they have to play more bigger games than others. Then they either have to play, no disrespect to Italy, but probably France or New Zealand in a quarter final. And then they've got to go and play another big boy before they get to a final. And that's a lot of rugby. And I think with going well in tournaments, a lot of it will come down to how well you can keep your players fit, and injuries. Injuries will start to play a big role, especially in key positions. We look at the World Cup back in 2011, where was it Stephen Donald was fishing on a boat somewhere in some harbour. Had to find his boots in his garage and dust them off, and ends up kicking the match winning on a World Cup winning goal. And I'm sure for Ireland and a lot of other sides that go well, it's going to be those positions. And obviously they've lost Cian Healy and stuff on last weekend, and other teams have lost certain players themselves. But I think it is going to be tough for them. But if ever they've got a chance, it's now, because from playing a rugby point of view, they've been brilliant. The Six Nations, they were great. They went down to New Zealand, the first side to win a Test series down there in how long? I don't even know. Even the Lions didn't do it and haven't done it in some time. And look, we know they weren't quite as good as they could have been in All Blacks, but still, to go to New Zealand, and Sergio's been there as well, it's a tough place to go. The crowd are against you, the fans are against you, the atmosphere, you're the other side of the world. And that really takes some doing. So I think they've got that belief now. I think Andy Powell, I've worked with Andy with England when he was defence coach, and his ability to use his mindset and the emotions and stuff like that. And he's really tapped into that Ireland and that Irish psyche.
He's genuinely my favorite coach to watch the press conferences of. I don't know what it is about him. Like, there's just something very real. I'm not even an Irish fan, but watching his press conferences, he just seems to have like smart, concise. I don't know. He just seems like he's really, really on the ball. But the results seem to be speaking for themselves, I suppose. But
he's got a great presence as well. And I think with him as well, and people need to remember that it wasn't all smooth sailing straight away. Like the first year, 18 months, they struggled after that Joe Smith kind of transition, and people were saying, "Oh, is he really the right person to lead them forward?" And that's a prime example of a union and a country really backing their coach. Because a lot of people would get rid of a coach after that time and say, "You know what, it hasn't worked, moved on." But they really backed him, they supported him, and now look at look at the success they've had.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll touch on some of the teams that have had less patience with their coaches in a second. But first, I want to just quickly speak about the Scots. Sergio, man, they got a tough pull, but they play some of the most beautiful rugby at the moment. Their backline is unbelievable.
Yeah, they play with a lot of pace, a lot of speed, and definitely they have the skills to beat South Africa and Ireland. So Scotland, they made a huge progress in the last 5-6 years. It's a top team, and definitely it's going to be a surprise for me if they can go out of this pool. Of course, it's difficult. Ireland, South Africa, yes, favorites, but just be careful with Scotland. I think it's a team who can put a team under pressure. I don't know if South Africa is going to be maybe their target, but I think they can put Ireland under pressure.
Yeah.
I think 2 cents. I'll reveal this, that I sent a text to Sergio a couple of weeks ago. I said I got 2 predictions, that England would lose to Fiji and Scotland would qualify. And he sent me a text back last week and said, well, you got one of those right so far.
Exactly.
But I think there's a thing with the Scots that if their forwards can get 40-50% possession, then they have a backline that can do things that other backlines can't. And I'm really excited to see how they go. And they've got Finn Russell, of course, and who he's worth the entrance fee alone, isn't he? You just love watching Finn Russell.
Yeah, this is the X factor, of course. Finn Russell is a guy who can unlock some situation, and it's gonna be interesting to see the games of Scotland, and from the physical point of view, it's gonna be tough, I think, against South Africa, especially for the forwards, as every single team. But I think they have the skills and the rugby to put pressure on these 2 teams.
Pool C, little bit less kind of stability in the coaching regimes there. Chris, I mean, what's Eddie Jones up to there? He's cleared out half of the kind of old guard. He's taken youngsters. He's taking uncapped players. What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's Eddie, to be honest. Unfortunately, I've suffered that wrath before the last World Cup. I was me, Dylan Hartley, Haskell, Mike Brown, Danny Kerr, all very experienced guys and kind of who played a lot within the squad, all gone. Ben Teo as well. And he's done it before, and he's not afraid to put his mark on. And I think with Australia, they have played some good rugby. They just haven't quite had the results yet. And I remember actually speaking to Michael Hooper, and it was with England when I think we'd lost 5 games on the bounce, but of which 4 had been to New Zealand and 1 had been to South Africa. And he just said, well, now you know how we feel, that everyone gives us loads of stick, that we haven't won a game in so long, but we're playing the best 2 or 3 teams in the world the whole time. And I think with that, it is very tough. And I think you have to look at that a little bit as well when you look at the results. But look, he's definitely bold with it to leave a player like Michael Hooper out, who's been the rock of that team for so long. But he's not afraid to make the big calls, and that's why he's had success, I think. And will they have success? I'm not sure. I actually think this group is the most open group out of everyone, because I don't think there's a clear favourite. I think even in that Pool B, you've got obviously probably South Africa are probably that favourites, and then but I think with this, they can all beat each other, and I don't think one side is going to win every game of it.
How important a bonus point is going to be in that group?
Yeah, well, very important. I think in all groups now as well. When the gap is getting smaller, like I said, you look at what Fiji did as well, and Fiji are definitely going to take some people up. And I think having that residency rule, and where people, if they haven't played for where they had their first cap for 3 years, I think it's brilliant that place and go off and play for another nation and maybe their country of birth or something like that. And that's definitely made a lot of these tier 2 teams a lot stronger.
Yeah. And be careful with Georgia as well in this pool. It's a tough team to play, and Wales as well. For me, it's the pool. The pool where I don't know how to say in this pool. It's difficult to say. I think Fiji can go out as well of this pool, but just I think, James, you're right. Bonus points and points are going to be important, especially on this pool.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sergio, you've played with a lot of the Fijian guys, and Georgian guys as well in the top 14.
Yeah.
So, if there's a side that's going to go out and potentially score bonus points, maybe that's Fiji.
Yeah, of course. A lot of Fijian and a lot of Georgian guys in the top 14 and even in second division, pretty too. Fiji not very well on the YCA national level. They captain play for years in Stade Francais together. Now here in Turan as well. And I know very well Simon Ravolui was coaching Stade Francais when we won the 2015 the top 14. So they look really organized. They have X factor. When you see the back line, it's just wow. Every single back from Fiji's, star on their teams in top 14 in Premiership, and even the forwards looks, more organized. They suffering a little bit less from on the set piece, and I think they really have big chance this year to go through on this pool. So it's going to be interesting to see Fiji. Maybe James, you have another predictions for this pool?
No, I haven't. Well, I tell you, when I did the England-Fiji game, I was covering the England-Fiji game, one thing I did write was that they have 4 or 5 absolutely world-class players, right? Lavani Bottia, he's as good as any open side in the world. And I actually believe they probably got the most balanced centre combination of any country at the World Cup. I think their centre combination is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And you always go back to this thing that I think Clive Woodward said it in 2003. To win a World Cup, you've got to have 4 or 5 world-class players in your side, absolute world-class players. And Fiji actually have 4 or 5 real kind of top performers, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think they've benefited as well from having the Fijian draw into the Super Rugby competition as well. But half their squad's made up of that one team, so their cohesion levels, I don't know, they seem to be doing something right anyway. Now, Chris, we talked about Eddie Jones, but Warren Gatland, he's had a similar thing with his squad as well. And when Jones is gone, Justin Tipperick's gone, Reece Webb is gone. That's
an interesting one in itself. But that's kind of madness. You probably saw Alan Wynne-Jones in terms of he was probably at the latter stages of his career. He's been a great player and a great servant to Welsh rugby. He wasn't the player he was in last World Cups or in previous time. And there's some young players coming through. But I look at Tipperick, and I think with Tipperick, he's still a brilliant player, and it's not like they had a huge amount of options. So that was one that really kind of stood out for me, because every time he plays, he's always one of the best players in the Welsh team. But again, is that more of cleaning out the old guard and just having a fresh stamp? Was there more behind the scenes that we don't know about? Which sometimes it can be. And look, it's going to be tough for them. There's no denying it, is it? They haven't played particularly well. They don't have a lot of big names coming through. I mean, Stuart Lancaster used to always say, when you get to World Cup, you want to have your squad at a certain amount of caps. So like an average player and having about 50 caps, and then to be successful, you want to have over 1,000 caps or whatever in a starting team. And I think for them, they've got so many young players. They either had the young players or the older players. They didn't really have that core group of 27 to 30-year-olds who have got 50-odd caps at the moment. I think that's where they lose a bit of their experience at the moment. But look, it's going to be hard for them. And I think Fiji are definitely going to go after them. And I think with Fiji as well, they've always had the talent, but they've also got a good set piece now. They've got players who can lock down a scrum, they can deliver line out, all that kind of stuff, because then you can unleash his back line. If you couldn't do that. So I think for Wales, it's going to be tough. And like Sergio said, with Georgia as well. Georgia beat them a couple of years ago. So that's going to be a tasty fixture as well.
Pool D, Sergio, Argentina. Is this maybe their best chance to have a good run in the World Cup for a long time?
Well, yeah, I think they're in the same pool with England, and they have the first game against them. It's going to be important for both teams. And from the England point of view, if you don't win against Argentina, lots of pressure. Last game against Samoa, which it's not going to be easy to beat. And Argentina, they don't play too many friendly games. They play a game against Spain, which was not like a big opposition, but the Argies, they're going to ride with a lot of passion, with a lot of they love to play against England. And the first game is gonna be massive, and I think they have a big chance to look in the performance of England on the last games and see Argentina have a big chance, I think, to go in and qualify maybe first on this pool. But the first game is gonna be definitely really important for them.
One for both Chris and Sergio. I talked about Fiji, having one of the best centre combinations in the tournament. For me, it's two back row forwards yourselves. The Argentinian back row is absolutely phenomenal. Creamer is one of the biggest units I've ever seen on a rugby pitch. Matera, one of the best carriers I've seen. And I honestly think Gonzalez is going to be one of the stars of the tournament. I think this kid is incredible.
Yeah, definitely a good back row. Matera, good player, and set the tone, especially for his character inside of the team. They have a lot of respect from his teammates, and Kremer, he just must be really care with the cards, red cards and yellow cards sometimes going. And Juan Gonzalez, well, I really love to have him maybe next year in Toulon, playing in Toulon. So
we're gonna scoop out you.
He's in Saris for 1 year, so we're gonna see. So definitely a good background.
Yeah, I agree. From an English point of view, I'm nervous, in honesty. There's a couple of players who are either injured or not playing from a band point of view, and there's some big players, especially when you talk about physicality, someone like a Billy Vunipola going up against the back row. And let's be honest, England haven't had the best run coming into this World Cup, and confidence probably isn't as high as they would like. But saying that, now they've got to France and speaking to some of the players, you have that excitement. You get your World Cup cap, you get the participation medal, and it becomes real. You're there, you've made it, you're all injury-free, all that kind of stuff. And now you can get excited. And you'll see it. They'll be driving around the cities. They'll see the fan zones and the amount of support they have and all that kind of stuff. But this game is, I think, on a knife edge, really. And I think it's down to a flick of a coin. I can't really say one team is an out-and-out winner. I think it's very evenly matched. And you can see either side winning or either side losing, I think. But I think
Argentina, Mark and I were talking before the pod about Emiliano Buffelli. Probably the best goal kicker I think I've seen in my 15 years writing on rugby. And I was reading an anecdote that he had a session with Lionel Messi, and Messi wanted to know how he kicked a ball so far. I mean, this is Lionel Messi asking Buffelli. And I thought that was quite remarkable. He's something else, isn't he, Buffelli?
Yeah, he is. And he's just, you know what, as a player, there's nothing worse if you give a penalty away and they've got a player like that. He's just not going to miss. Yeah. He feels so guilty anyway, giving the penalty away. And then you know a player like that is going to step up. And again, it was like when Lee Halfpenny was at that kind of level. You play against Wales and you just know, or Henry Pollard or someone like that. And it's so frustrating. So hopefully you can have an off day. I think the big thing from both Group C and D is their draw. The draw is fantastic. If they can get out of the group, you're then playing against another team who's probably a similar level to you. Whereas all of a sudden, all the big five or whatever we want to call them, are all the other side, and we don't need to worry about them. You get out of the group, and you can even lose a game in the group and still get out and still play against someone and potentially progress even further. So I think that's going to be the belief that once these teams get through from both C and D, if they can manage their way through, there's a real opportunity for them to go far. And then it comes down to a little bit of momentum, a bounce of the ball, pressure, all these kind of things suddenly come into it.
You and I, Chris, we did a piece about a week or so ago just on the makeup of the World Cup team. And one of the points you made very, very powerfully was the need to take 33 fit and available players to a Rugby World Cup. England, through serendipity, I guess, ended up in a situation now where there are 28 players available for this game against Argentina. What's kind of your view, looking back on the words that you and I put together for that piece?
Yeah, it's not ideal, to be honest, is it? like you want to get to France or wherever the World Cup is, that first training session, knowing that you can pick your squad and know it. And most coaches will go into that and they'll know their team. They know exactly who they want to play. It might be one guy might be a little bit tight, but he'll be fine come the game, all that stuff. Whereas with England, I feel they still don't know what side they want to play, which I think is going to give a headache. Are they going to play, obviously, with Owen not in? Are they going to play George Ford or Marcus Smith? On the wing, is Elliot Daly fit? So can you bring him? And I think all of a sudden, you've got a guy who can kick the ball from 55 metres. So that gives you a different dimension and get out of trouble. And also, he gives you a bit more speed and a bit more experience in that backfield. Obviously, now Anthony Watson's not there. So, yeah, there's a couple of different permutations. And obviously, Billy Vunipola. So when we spoke about back row, Sergio, and Tom Curry hasn't had a run out yet. Tom Curry's been England's probably the most consistent player for the last 4 years, maybe a bit longer, 5 years. All of a sudden, he's not had a good hit out. He would probably like to play a Japan or Chile to get a bit of game time and get a bit of experience. Obviously, tough games, but they should win. All of a sudden, he might have not played for 3 or 4 months going up against one of the top sides in the world.
Are we seeing anything from a potential like a Samoa with a bunch of converted All Blacks, Wallabies, Tonga, some similar situation? Neither of the side kind of got to that same level as Fiji in all their recent fixtures. Japan has been a little bit kind of underperforming compared to when they were at home at the last World Cup. So, Joe, do you see any possibilities, or is it kind of a small chance?
No, there are always a possibility, especially in the World Cup. Yeah, as you say, Japan looks a little bit, as they play Italy in the last warm up game, and they was not in the same place as we did in the last World Cup. What is fantastic of the tournament is like, as Chris say, every single player, every single nation arriving to the country, take their cup. You go in another dimension, and no matter what happened in the warm-up game, no matter what happened before, no matter what the press say, you are there and you can't control. You know what I mean? You can't control your games, and it's for every single team, it's going to be fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to go and see what's happening.
Just one thing on that pool, I'm going to just throw one in. You look at the Argentina and the other teams within the pool. I actually think they know their own games better than England know their own game, Chris. I don't think England. David Flatman said something very interesting in a piece recently that he backed South Africa because they knew their game better than any other test nation. And when I look at this pool, I look at England, I thought, well, do they know their game as well as the other sides?
Yeah, I agree with that. Our style, which is generally what we call it. Do we know the style of rugby we play? When you play South Africa, you know the style they're going to play. It's going to be a 10-man game and once they get forward, they're going to play a bit wide or send it up in the sky. With us, we're still working out. And I think a lot of that depends with who we're going to play at 9 and 10, who we have in the back row. Some of our players probably haven't been, unfortunately, at the heights they have been in recent time, and it's about how do we get them back there? How do we give them that confidence? Because when you're at that level, everyone can lift the same and run the same speed and as strong as each other and all that kind of stuff. But it's the top 2 inches, and how do you get them playing and believing that they can do it? And that might just take one bounce of the ball to pop up to someone as they're running, or a kick to work and all that kind of stuff. Confidence is a different thing, but yeah, whether they've held a lot back, and we're going to see a different England and a well-prepared England, because in all these World Cup camps, yes, you're preparing a little bit for the warm-up games, but I guarantee you, everything England were preparing for is this first game. And it wouldn't be beyond that, because once they know, they'll have set moves, which they would have hidden. And same as all the nations, same as Argentina and Italy and everyone. But that's important to remember, that teams don't want to show too much. But hopefully, we can make sure we click, because if not, it'll be a tough day against the Argentinians.
Right, folks, time is flying by. I want to finish off with, it was James's idea, actually. 3 wishes for this Rugby World Cup. And James, because it was your idea, I'm going to go with you first. With 3 wishes for a player, for the final, and for your own team that you follow. So for James, what are your 3 wishes for this Rugby World Cup?
For England, I want to see progression, and I want to see a team that the country likes. And I think likability is a really undervalued thing from a rugby coaching perspective. If you can make your team likable, you get the team behind you, you get the nation's support. I think that's really important. In terms of players, there's a few players that I really think are going to become world-class performers. I mean, obviously it's Antoine Dupont, but Sergio, you know I'm a massive fan of your teammate Charles Ollivon down in Toulon, and I think he's got the ability to become one of the best back row forwards the world seen. From a New Zealand perspective, against Nico in the back row, I want to see Ardie Savea go up to the next level. I can watch that guy all day. And I think from a prediction, my heart says France. I really, for the romantic side of rugby, because it's a Northern Hemisphere side, I really want France to win. But unfortunately, my head says the Springboks look absolutely untouchable at the moment. And I can't see any side. Maybe if Willemse and Bai were fit, I might have a different view. But looking at the sheer poundage that the South African side have, it's hard to bet against them at the moment.
Chris, how about for you?
Okay. Look, of course, I hope England win it. That's what I hope. I know they've got a lot of work to do, but yeah, that's definitely my thing. In terms of a player, I'm going to go with someone from one of the tier 2 sides. A guy called Theo McFarlane, Samoan flanker. He was at Saracens. He played second row round flanker. He was at Saracens, or is at Saracens. He was brilliant. Unfortunately, he did his ACL this season. Unfortunately, he's only just come back, and he was brilliant in that game, Samoa Island last weekend. So I think he's going to have a really big World Cup, as people don't know necessarily. And who do I think is going to win it? I hope it's a Northern Hemisphere side, to be honest. Again, I hope England, but I think France. I'm going to go for France.
Sergio?
Well, from the Italian point of view, hope the guys have no regrets on this group. As I say, just winning the 2 games and going to challenge New Zealand and France and with no regrets and achieve experience, because it's a really young team. I'm really think that in the next World Cup in Australia, this team, the most part of this team is going to be 27, 28 years old. It's going to be a really good sight to see. And prediction, of course, I'm in France. I think France, they look strong. And I will see France. And for a player, tier 2 player from Georgia, Niniashvili, 15. So talented, have an X factor. Is a really, really good player. So it's gonna be funny to see him on that full running a little bit with the ball.
So none of you 3 guys have tipped Ireland. I await angry comments from Irish viewers at the fact that you 3 guys have all dismissed their chances of winning the Rugby World Cup. Thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure to have you on. We are going to catch up again, I believe, right before the knockout stages of the World Cup. But as I said, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys much for your valuable time. And I look forward to talking to you guys again soon.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers.